right, we're at 4 o'clock now. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Stapleton. I'm the Executive Director with the U.S. Green Building Council, Los Angeles. We're very honored and proud to showcase the project, or projects, I should say, that we're going to see this afternoon from our partners at LACCD and Verdical Group, amongst others. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Before we begin, just some housekeeping notes. Would ask you to please mute yourself. We're going to have a lot of people on the call today, and it's always good policy to mute yourself unless you're speaking. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to enter those into the chat on the right-hand side of the screen. We'll get to questions throughout the tour and at the end of the tour, so we can answer some of your questions for you. Next slide, please. While we're waiting and people are signing in, I just want to share some information with you on upcoming happenings with the U.S. Green Building Council, LA. So, first of all, part of the reason you're here today, big focus for us is on education and engagement. We've shifted all of our content to go digital as of mid-March, and we have about 2 to 3 digital events a week. So you can see some of our upcoming calendar here on the right. And that includes committee meetings, that includes education and training. We have a great webinar series called Leading Ladies, which is put on by 2 construction attorneys that talks about some aspects of construction law. So please encourage you to come and check out some of our upcoming content. Next slide, please. Something that we're incredibly proud of, we launched our talent portal in the first week of March, about a week before the pandemic hit. But it stresses even more importantly, the need right now for us to really connect people with ways to develop their own talent and connect with other talent. So I'd invite you to check out our talent portal when you have a moment. On our talent portal, we feature jobs, we feature employers, we have a mentor network, we have upcoming training that's available to take, as well as recorded content. And it's where you'll find this virtual tour. When we're done, it'll be posted to that portion of our website. And we're really trying to make this an industry hub here for the region to help elevate our talent here in LA. Next slide, please. Also a great way for you to get engaged in our community. We have 7 committees here that meet monthly. They're open to anyone to join. As you can see, those range from advocacy and building decarbonization to construction. Our Green Schools group is actively working on how to green schools and has a number of projects here in the LA area. Our Women in Green Committee has a happy hour once a month as well, and has an upcoming breakfast in September. Our Legacy project is an annual project where we actually come in and put $20,000 into community project here in the LA area, and then our members volunteer and build it out, sometimes doing design, actually helping with construction. This year we're building out a rooftop garden that's going to serve as a prison reentry program on a church in West Adams here in LA. It's an amazing project. So if you're looking for some ways to give back and get involved, I would encourage you to engage. Next slide, please. Also would like to invite you on August 21st and 22nd. We have our Municipal Green Building Conference and Expo. Believe it or not, this is our 19th year of having this event. Really, it's an incredible time to come together for our community here in the Southern California region. This year, we've added a Community Green Day, which is focused on engaging the public in the green building conversation. Everything's going to be done virtually this year. The Saturday Community Green is free and open to the public. We're going to have keynotes. We're going to have workshops on how you can do things to make your own home more sustainable, information on things like composting, how to protect your home from wildfire. And then on Municipal Green Day, which is that Friday the 21st, we're actually going to have a presentation from some of the team here at LACCD on some of the work they've been doing in a workshop session. We have a variety of keynotes, and we'll be featuring some innovative startups and other things that will be exciting to come see. So I would encourage you to come out to check out MGBCE 2020, wherever you are, as our friends at Verdical Group like to say. Next slide, please. And then if you appreciate the content today, we provide most of our digital content for free. We'd ask you to consider donating by texting GREEN to 707070. Really helps us support work like this and finding ways to bring more content out to the public to help provide education around green buildings and how do we really make our society more sustainable here in the greater LA region. Next slide, please. All right, and with that, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Ramsdale over at Verdical Group. Verdical Group is a longtime partner of ours, and we're really just honored to be able to host this virtual tour with them and our friends at the LA Community College District. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the tour today. Thank you. Rebecca, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. Thanks for mentioning the Municipal Green Building Conference and Expo. I'm super excited for that, coming up on August 21st. This year is a little bit different, so we'll have the first day, and then the second day will be open to the whole community. So it's going to be a public event, so all my friends and family are invited. So again, I'm Rebecca Ramsdale. I'll be your host and moderator for the tour this afternoon. I'm so glad you guys can all join us. I'm a project manager at Verdical Group, and I enjoy volunteering as the U.S. Green Building Council Long Beach Branch Vice Chair. Also in my free time, I enjoy hiking in the LA National Forest and Griffith Park. From the hiking trails, it's just beautiful to see the skyscraper buildings in the backdrop and then having skyscraping trees right there on the trail. It reminds me why I put the work in each day to help preserve the beauty of nature and cohabitate with the city for sustainable and regenerative city. At Verdical Group, just a few bits here. We're a full service green building consulting firm providing sustainability services such as project management for LEED, Living Building Challenge, Fitwell, Well, commissioning, energy modeling, and event services. So we hope we all can join us virtually September 15th and 16th for our Net Zero Conference from the comfort of your own living room with a very small carbon footprint since you won't have to travel to the actual convention center this year. Early bird pricing is good for one more week. All right, so I'm very excited to steer this tour virtually today and wanted to mention again a few housekeeping items. Please mute yourself as this is being recorded. This video will be shared in the next week or so, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of this recording. So feel free to keep the questions going. Okay, today we will hear from a variety of project leads from LA Valley College, the design team, and highlight the LEED achievements as we provide a virtual walkthrough through two unique buildings, highlighting specific sustainability challenges and successful saving measures that were saved along the way. Both the Community Services Center and administrative buildings achieved gold level of LEED certification. So we will provide a roadmap and some strategies that you can take home to your daily work and tasks. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Barry Gribbins and then Dr. Smith, who is joining us from LA Valley College. Take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. It's our pleasure to host you on this virtual tour of our campus. The campus has had a long tradition with a connection with the environment. Many of the trees, and we have thousands of trees on campus, many of them were planted when the college was first formed 70 years ago. We've since become a tree campus, part of Tree Campus USA, and the connection with the environment continues and even grows. We're delighted to show two of our gold level buildings with you for workforce training and administration, as well as community services and athletics. Both, I think, do a terrific job of showcasing some of our commitments. And you'll also see, as an example right behind me, how we're also working with the campus to manage water, capturing storm water and managing it and storing it on campus. Collectively, it, I think, does a nice job of showcasing our commitment to the environment. And last week, and maybe Dr. Smith can speak to this a little bit more, the District Board of Trustees announced a goal of having net zero carbon footprint by 2040. So with that, let me go ahead and turn that over to Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Dr. Gribbins. Thanks to the USGBC LA chapter and Verdical Group for the opportunity to feature two buildings we're pretty proud of. The district has invested $870 million at Valley College to replace aging infrastructure and buildings that enhance the students' experience. Besides the two buildings featured today, the district recently completed the Student Union Building, also known as Monarch Center, that features a bookstore, cafeteria, health center, coffee shop, and other areas designated for student activities. In addition to the college's recent delivery of a building, we also have a new library, academic resource center, child development and family complex, and the Monarch Athletic Center, as Dr. Gribbins mentioned. And in 2017, we also had a stormwater improvement project to capture stormwater runoff. We're currently in the last phase of construction on an energy infrastructure project, which aims to increase efficiency and capacity for our existing central plant. We basically want to support the existing buildings, recently completed construction, as well as future buildings at Valley College. A couple of items to note with our energy infrastructure project are the addition and improvement of the thermal energy storage, TES, as well as chill water pumps, and the upgrade of one of our chillers. Focusing more on today's tour, you will learn about the efforts it took to deliver green buildings of our two gold buildings of the Community Service Center, as well as the Administrative and Career Investment Center. As responsible stewards of the taxpayers' dollar, we had to invest wisely into these two signature buildings. And we knew that investing in sustainable features, such as natural lighting, durable materials, low flow restroom fixtures, and implementing heat island reduction measures was the prudent path to take. These projects are examples of the vision LACCD set for our $9.66 billion bond program and the commitment we have for our students, our communities, and our region. In partnership with our 9 colleges and design and contracting partners collectively, LACCD is pushing the envelope to turn sustainability goals into reality. We've been early leaders in setting the norm for sustainable building and clean energy. In conjunction with the passing of Prop A, almost 20 years ago in 2001, LACCD committed to ensuring our bond-funded construction met, at a minimum, LEED certification, exceeding Title 24 energy efficiency standards by 20%, with 10% of our energy used was sourced as renewable. Now, since 2001, across the 9 colleges, I'm proud to say that we've had 77 LEED certified buildings, 4 of which have achieved LEED Platinum. One at LA Harbor College, the Science Complex, one at Mission College, the East Campus Center and Math Science Center, one at Pierce College, the Library Learning Crossroads, and one at Southwest College, the School Career Technology Building. And of the 3 recent projects that we've let for design, we've recently contracted with 2 more LEED Gold buildings and 1 silver. Our energy consumption efforts have also been vast. In renewable efforts, we boast 10.6 megawatts of solar voltaics installed across the district, as well as being awarded $16.5 million of California Prop 39 energy efficiency funds to deliver 51 projects that save us about $1 million annually. Now, lastly, I'm proud to announce that our commitment to clean energy and sustainability that Dr. Gribbins mentioned, it's by no short effort that our goal is to be carbon-based electricity consumption by 2030. We plan to eliminate that. And then by 2040, carbon-free, with a robust sustainability plan to reduce greenhouse gases and emissions, but most importantly, change the lives through academic and training programs to support green jobs for the 21st century. If you haven't been to one of our 9 colleges, campuses in the last few years, when it's safe to do so, I definitely recommend that you come pay us a visit. I encourage you to walk around and see how much in a short amount of time that our colleges have taken, what has been old, dilapidated buildings, energy hogs, falling down structures, and transform them into leading academic institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grivens, and thank you, Dr. Smith. Wow, I just want to reemphasize that is such a great announcement, which I heard just came out recently, your zero carbon goals. So cheers, congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll kick things off with the first LEED Gold building. This is the Community Services Center. It contains a gymnasium and various other recreational areas for students and children in the community. I will turn it over to Gig to speak about the architectural aspects of the CSC building.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. My name is Gig Kupura. I'm with QDG Architecture, and I was the project architect on this project. Designing a building for LEED certification is always easier when you employ passive design strategies at the onset. This is a fundamental approach that we apply to all of our projects at QDG Architecture, not just the Community Service Center or Valley Glen Gateway building. During the initial building design phase, the AT team can make strategic site and building design decisions that help mitigate addressing construction and operational impacts on the environment. As you can see right now, the picture that you're seeing is the south elevation. The building envelope of the CSC varies considerably among exposures. Here, as you can see, there are large roof overhangs to reduce solar exposure and also provide shaded gathering area that supports the building program. Next slide. The picture here is the west side. The glazing is strategically protected by recessed vertical slots at the windows and applied vertical sun control devices to minimize glare. You'll also notice there are louvers at the lower portions of this elevation, which is part of the natural ventilation design that Don will elaborate more on later in the tour. Next slide. This is the north elevation. It's basically maximizing the glazing on it to look at the mountains. Next slide. Here is the east side elevation. The glazing is controlled to overlook the outdoor plaza area. As we're turning to Stacey to talk, I just want to wrap up saying that the finishes here were selected based on sustainability. For example, the flooring in most rooms in this building has vinyl floor tiles, which have high recycled content. And most woods used are FSC, Forest Stewardship Council, certified to be wood products from sustainable milling practices.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gig. Great strategies, implementing the shading overhang and implementing glass and glazing so that occupants can have quality views. All right, next we'll hear from Stacey on the general contractor perspective.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. My name is Stacey Koguchi, and I'm currently a project manager at Charles Pankow Builders. On this project, I was actually a project engineer, and one of my responsibilities was to manage the LEED process. So I don't think this was mentioned, but the Community Services Center project, or CSC as we like to call it, was a design build project, which meant that we as a general contractor were involved early on in the project, beginning of the design phase. And this is beneficial to us because it allowed us to collaborate early and often with the design team to achieve our LEED credit. As Gig mentioned, selection of materials was important. Nearly 18% of the building materials by value was manufactured using recycled materials, and almost 12% of the building materials by value were manufactured within 500 miles of the project site. KPFF will touch more on this as far as the use of concrete and steel, which were major contributing factors to these credits. During the course of construction, we implemented and maintained our erosion control plan and SWIP's best management practices by installing sandbags around the perimeter and around any storm drain inlet. Also, we installed trench plates at all vehicular entrances to the site, and at any transitions between any paved areas and to the dirt. We were actually fortunate that we had a large site to work with, and that we had a large paved area remaining so that we could park have construction parking on the paved areas. Also, our trailers and some of the lay down area were on the paved area, so that certainly helped reduce the amount of dirt that was tracked off site. We were able to also divert 87% of construction waste from landfills. LEED requires 75%, and so we were able to exceed our goal by vetting our waste management vendor and also collecting and verifying their tickets on a monthly basis and checking and adjusting from there. Additionally, during the early phases of construction, we worked closely with our commissioning authority, who was Jacobs on this project, and with our subcontractors to develop a commissioning plan and functional testing to ensure that all the building systems, not just the MEP systems, was built and functioning as intended. And we achieved both the fundamental and enhanced commissioning LEED credits, and we also met the requirements of LACCD's whole building commissioning program. One of my favorite things about the commissioning process is actually going back to the 10-month warranty walk to see how the building was functioning and seeing it being used. Also during construction, we followed SMACNA measures for indoor air quality management and installed low emitting materials. Staff then covered their duct openings and put filters on their grills, and we maintain a rather clean site. And also, we were able to flesh out the building pre-occupancy, and with some early planning, we were able to get that into our schedule. We also verified the use of low-emitting materials through submittals, and we verified those materials prior to installation to ensure that they complied with the low VOC content. Achieving these credits would not have been possible without close coordination with our design team and also the participation from all of our subcontractors, even though we made it a contractual requirement. But also the overall process to ensure that we tracked, collected, and had the necessary documentation for LEED certification was made easier by regular check-in meetings with Verdical and their handy tracking logs. So thank you, Verdical, for helping us achieve goals.
Got it. Thank you, Stacey. Great. And thank you to LA Valley College for continuing the waste stream diversion process. I saw in this video earlier here, think green, act green. It's so great to talk about mitigating waste at this day and age, especially during Plastic-Free July. So I applaud LA Valley College for continuing this thought in operations through the building use. All right, next up, we'll hear from Eldrin, who will speak to the structural sustainability aspects. Aldrin?
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here today. My name is Aldrin Aru. I'm with KPFF Consulting Engineers. I'm a structural engineer, and I was the structural engineer of record for the two projects that we are presenting today. Regarding the structure of the specific building, we concentrated on achieving two main sustainability goals. That is to maximize the recycled content in the materials and also maximize the use of regional material. As you can see on the pictures, the building consists of a steel frame structure, and steel is one of the most recycled materials in the world. That was not the only reason why we chose this system for this building, but it was perfect system for the long spans in the high bay areas for an economic building systems. So it was a win-win situation, trying to contribute to a high recyclable goal in the materials, but also to have an efficient structural system for the building. The other main material that we try to maximize the recycled content was on the concrete. There's not a lot of concrete here, but all the foundations and slabs on grade use the fly ash replacing some of the cement. The specifications for the project call out a minimum of 50% of recyclable of fly ash in the concrete mix. I think it was somewhere between 15 and 20% that was used for the project, which is really kind of the sweet spot where it doesn't really interfere with the strength or workability of the concrete. And I think it's a good replacement and economical for the contractor to have about that amount of fly ash. Those of you that are not so familiar with fly ash is considered a recyclable material because it's a byproduct of post-production of the production of burning coal, basically. So and that is used to replace cement and concrete. Now, regarding regional materials, we did have some places where we used CMU block. That was basically all local material. And we, in terms of, I think Stacey mentioned in the past, we achieved a sort of 12% all-inclusive in terms of regional materials on this project and a recyclable content in materials for about 18%.
Awesome. Well done, Aldrin. Thank you for incorporating all those recycled materials into the design. That definitely helps lower the embodied carbon, which I know is a very popular topic these days. So thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. Next up, we'll hear from Dawn, who will share some insight about the mechanical, energy, and plumbing sustainable systems. Dawn?
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon. I'm Don Harrisberger with Southland Industries. We were the mechanical and plumbing design build partners on these two projects we're talking about today. The mechanical and plumbing systems in these buildings were fairly simple, so our goal was to try to make things as efficient as possible. As Gig mentioned earlier, the building was key in putting in the shading and aspects architecturally that made the building skin much more efficient. We were also able to tie into the campus central plant to provide chilled water and heating hot water for the building. We utilized a single VAV air handling system for the building that fed VAV boxes that used hot water reheat coils for heating the spaces. One key aspect of this building was the natural ventilation that Gig mentioned earlier. We utilized louvers on the west side that were low, and we had louvers on the east and south side that were high in the high bay spaces. So we were able to use the buoyancy effect and get some natural ventilation effect through those spaces to help cool and utilize natural ventilation for those spaces. We did a computational fluid dynamics analysis of the building to validate our theories, and it seemed to achieve what we were trying to get. Other aspects of the building, we utilized airflow monitoring stations on the air handler, so we were able to get the outdoor air delivery monitoring credit. We also put in exhaust systems to help in the indoor chemical and pollution control credit, and we were also able to show that we met the thermal comfort to achieve that point. So overall, the building achieved a 30% reduction in energy use and a 34% energy cost reduction. So we feel from what the standpoint we had of the building, we achieved a pretty efficient building. So thank you.
You're muted, Don.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. The plumbing systems were pretty straightforward. We had a single plumbing core. We had a teaching kitchen that had some sinks in there. We had some other satellite sinks in the building. We were able to achieve a 43% reduction in water use by using low flow water closets, waterless urinals, and metering faucets at the sinks. So overall, it was a fairly efficient plumbing system.
All right, great. Thank you, team. So that does it for the CSC, Community Services Center building. It certainly encompassed sustainability from the inception, right from the beginning. During the LEED charrette, there was a lot of collaboration during the design phase and then all the way through construction. And I can see the sustainability measures being carried on by LA Valley College. Here are some photographs of the CSC in action. The community really enjoys this building, and it promotes a healthy lifestyle. All right, and I will turn it over to Danny, who will provide an overview of what exterior civil engineering sustainability measures were implemented. And then right after that, we will fly on over via drone to the administrative building. Danny?
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, I'm Danny Munsterman with KPFF. I was the civil engineer on this project. You know, these were challenging projects, and we did a great job as a design team in allowing large pedestrian ways. What you see here is something called the Alumni Walk. These large pedestrian spaces that had to meet ADA requirements were designed to disconnect primarily into landscape areas to promote natural treatment, evapotranspiration, uptake of water into plants as a pre-treatment and just a sustainable practice. In addition to that, we have bioretention, bioswale, and infiltration features kind of scattered around the sites. Here is a bioswale, some linear treatment to slow water down at the end of a parking lot. In addition to this pre-treatment, the water is then infiltrated downstream underneath the football field, where we have almost 500 linear feet of 4-foot diameter infiltration pipe. On the CSC project alone, we reduced the overall impervious footprint by more than 50%, and we achieved, I think, a 50% reduction in overall stormwater volume for the campus. Here is continuing to the west, more of the Alumni Walk, just south of the pool area. Again, we graded to disconnect large pedestrian areas into landscape features to promote natural treatment. So we were able to accomplish that all the way around the site. In addition to the volume requirement, we achieved our other LEED credit for treatment by treating more than 95% of the hardscape around each of the sites. As you can see, this drone flyover now takes you over to the Community Workforce Development Center building, or the administration building. And on this site, we also have large pedestrian ways disconnecting into landscape areas. These kind of shaded areas where you see a large tree, there's a bioswale and bioretention area on that side. On the west side of this, adjacent to the drive aisle in the parking lot, it's lined with 3 different bioretention planters that have infiltration. So all the way around the project, we were able to successfully disconnect hardscape and promote natural and permanent infiltration treatment.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Danny. Water is such a vital resource, especially here in Southern California. So I'm glad that we were able to incorporate that into the design. Thank you, Danny. All right. Hope you guys aren't too jet lagged. We have arrived at the administrative building. This is about a 70,000 square foot administrative building that houses LA Valley College Campus Conference Center, as well as various offices, workforce development programs, and classrooms. So I will turn it over to Kevin to speak about the architectural highlights of the administrative building.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I see some great questions coming in. So at the end, I'm excited about our team sort of addressing those. Like a Gig had said on the CSC, we approach every project from a sort of a passive approach first before we look at sort of mechanical and electrical systems to augment our sustainability efforts. But on this building, we were very selective on where we located our glazing. And actually, if you look at the sort of the photographs of the building, it seems like it has more glazing than it does. It's just because we were strategic about locating at entries and at public spaces where people could really take advantage of it. And we really focused on getting a very tight building footprint for a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to preserve as many trees on the campus as we could. As the president of the college indicated, this is a tree campus, and we wanted to celebrate that by preserving that heritage. In fact, there's a sort of an art piece in the building sort of dedicated to the trees of the campus. And here you can see some different fenestration treatments with glazing, a combination of overhangs, which protect the glass, fritted glass to let light in areas where it's not necessary to have a direct view, and then also light shelves to protect glass and bounce light deeper into the building to reduce the reliance on artificial lighting. Go on to the next. Here's sort of a quick guide to some of the features. This building, like the CSC, features a cool roof, which reflects heat rather than absorbing it. And then we use skylights in several different ways to bring light into the building. And also there's sort of a main street which runs through the building, which is where you see most of the glass. And that is a way to also borrow light from the interior so that you could have spaces that don't necessarily have an exterior wall, but could bring in some natural light to create a very comfortable working environment. And off on the bottom there, you could see what Andrew was talking about with the stormwater retention area in Bioswale. Go to the next. And here again, actually just one sort of update. Those fins didn't make it to the end of the job, but you did see them on the CSC building, and they are quite effective. But on this project, they didn't make it to the end despite our best efforts. But the good news is that it still provides, even without them, there's a high degree of comfort within the building, even at those exposures. And before I turn it off, I just want to say is that, you know, on this project, like the first, it was all about an efficient use of materials, maximizing recycled content, using structural materials as finished materials as much as we could. And we work with Aldrin on this all the time, so that, you know, any materials that we don't need to put into the building don't end up in the landfill when the building is decommissioned at the end. So we take that very, very seriously. And with that, we'll turn it over to, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it from here, Kevin. Thank you so much. Yes, great usage of glazing that allows for a ton of daylighting to come in, that promotes for healthy occupants so that their circadian rhythm is on track. Also incorporating skylights into the open office areas. Truly great. And thank you, Danny, for your Bioswale design. So next up, we will hear from Lindsay, another team member from the PANCO General Contractor.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lindsay Gray. I am a senior project manager with PANCO. And like CSC, the admin building was also a design build project. And I was involved from the very start. I loved working with our design build partners, QDG and KPFS, as well as our trade partners, Southland Industries for mechanical and plumbing, and SASCO for electrical and low voltage. So as far as the general contractor LEED points we achieved, we did achieve the construction activity pollution prevention point as well. We had our SWIP, which included gravel bags and the rumble plate. We also had a parking lot similar to CSC that helped eliminate the dust from the project. And a member of our project team was actually the QSP monitoring the SWIPs for this project. So that was great. As far as commissioning, we also did the fundamental and enhanced commissioning. Our commissioning authority was Enovity, who was involved from the very start of the project, helping us by reviewing submittals and putting a plan of action together for a successful, smooth, functional testing time. And then a lot of the other credits that we get as a general contractor involve collecting a significant amount of information from subcontractors, like the construction waste management, the recycled content, the indoor air quality, and the low emitting materials. So we also worked with Verdical Group as our sustainability consultant and had regular calls with them we'd let them know what we had collected to date, and they would tell us where we should be collecting more so that we're not having a mad scramble at the end of the project to collect information from subcontractors. And I'm happy to say that we did not have the scramble at the end. They kept us on track, and we were successful at the end with that. For our construction waste management, we did divert nearly 80% of the material from a landfill. So that was monitored on a monthly basis. Like Stacey said, we had the same process. So we did a monthly report about the construction waste management. And then also for innovation, you can see there's a lot of great natural lighting on this project, but for the lights that we did install, we had the low mercury lighting. The threshold for low mercury lighting is 80, and we were actually closer to 33, so we were well below that threshold for that point. That's it, Rebecca.
Great. All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Yes, always good to steer away from the scramble at the end and have consistent meetings along the way as check-ins, make sure everyone's on track. You know, some subcontractors are front-loaded on the beginning of the project, and they are on to other projects and busy with other items by the time it's the end of construction. Thanks, Lindsay. All right, we'll bring Aldrin back to speak about the structural components of the administrative building. Aldrin?
Thank you, Rebecca. Similar to the CSC, I think the strategies for sustainability features on the structural end relied on the recycled content and regional materials. But on this one, probably a little bit more on the recycled content. It is it's a 2-story steel building, and also has the stairs, which are steel, and railings. So there's a little bit more steel on this building than in the CSC, as you can see. And through the design process, I think QDG did a great job of incorporating sort of the structural and exposing some of the structure to make it part of the architecture in the building, which I think rather nicely, both columns and braces throughout the buildings are features which are always a good thing to kind of see your design product at the end, because a lot of times it's hidden. But I'm happy to see that we're glorifying it, or at least exposing it for educational purposes. But I think that, again, we used the fly ash on the concrete as well. Again, to basically limit the fly ash and work with Panko's concrete group, which really has a sort of an expertise, or they rely on their concrete experts within the firm to try to come up with the right mix and workability, in order to be workable. And so fly ash would not really affect both the workability of the concrete or delay in the strength that's needed. So that is one of the benefits of being in a design build team and having that expertise early on to sort of be able to coordinate the amount of fly ash and that could be accomplished and not affect some of the concrete features, but also be economical as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Aldrin. Yes, I'm pleased to see all the structural components exposed as well. A lot of times they're hidden in the walls, so I think that's a great feature to see in the building, and also hopefully maybe the students will take an eye to this and get an interest in structural engineering. Okay, next up, to close out the speakers for this portion of the tour, we will hear from Dawn, who will speak about the mechanical, plumbing, and energy in the administrative building. Dawn?
Thank you. This building, very similar mechanical and plumbing aspects as the community center building. We're tied into the central plant, so we're able to utilize the efficiency of the central plant. There's a single air handling system that feeds the building with VAV boxes and hot water reheat, very similar to the other building. We were also able to utilize some diversity on this building because of the size and the occupancy with classrooms and offices. So this building was able to achieve a 38% reduction in energy use and a 35% reduction in energy cost. So even without the natural ventilation as we had in the other building, we're still able to achieve a very efficient building. move to plumbing.
Sure.
Again, the plumbing system is very similar. We had very similar results. This building had a 44% reduction in water use, again, by utilizing low flow water fixtures, waterless urinals, and metering faucets for the labs. And that's it for the plumbing.
All right. Thank you, Don. You handled all three scopes there very well. Thanks for joining us. So as we gaze here out on the courtyard, that closes out our speaking portion of the tour. And we will join in watching the virtual sunset and transition into the evening portion of the Q&A. I'd like to thank the project team for joining us today. It's really great to hear from you all and gain a holistic view about everything that soared this project into LEED Gold certification. It was an absolute delight for Verdical Group to work with QDG, Southland, KPFS, PANCO, from the initial LEED charrette all the way through construction. It's a treat to see how sustainable designs come to fruition and produce not one, but two LEED Gold certified buildings. Feed two birds with one stone, I say, not kill two birds with one stone. So I hope this tour provided some insight into exactly what is needed to achieve the LEED Gold level of certification. And hopefully our listeners here can implement these sustainable strategies into your own design and construction strategies. This virtual tour would not be possible without the rock stars behind the scenes. So I will give a few credits here. Shout out to Julie Jacobson of U.S. Green Building Council, San Fernando Valley. She is the chair and had the initial idea for this tour. Thank you, Julie. Also, Mary Sella from LACCD for compiling and coordination of the videography and photography. Also to Farah of USGBCLA and Chloe Woodruff, my colleague at Verdical Group, for the marketing component. So now please feel free to grab a beverage. It's just about 5 o'clock. So we will answer some more questions and hang out over a glass of wine or orange juice or whatever you please. So we will transition to a Q&A. And Farah, do you have the chat open with the Q&A? I'll try to open it on my end.
Yes, I do. I believe George might have answered the question already, but I think this would be fun to actually go over as well. Patty had just posed a question, or actually two questions. Thank you for that, Patty. By using fly ash, do you sacrifice strength that cement affords?
Aldrin, do you want to take that?
Okay. Yes. Yeah, Aldrin, if you could take that structural question.
Yeah, it was on cement board. Did I understand it correctly? Fly ash on cement board?
Oh, by using fly ash, do you sacrifice strength that in the cement?
Oh, it retards the strength. It primarily retards the strength. So, on concrete, we look at a 28-day compression strength. So it may take longer to reach that strength. So typically, but at the levels that we were using it and what I've been, at a 15, 20%, it's very negligible. So, if you're using 35, 40% fly ash, then it does have effect. And it's primarily more on the delay strength. So if you're looking to get a 28-day, 4,000 PSI mix, it may take up to 52 days, right? If you use too much fly ash. So at a certain limit, it does not really, really have an impact on the strength. So, and that's what we did on this project.
That's a great point. Thanks, Aldrin. Also, we have a question about waterless urinals. So how is that accomplished from a sanitation standpoint? Don, if you could take the lead on that.
As one of the listeners mentioned in there, there's a cartridge in there that acts as a trap that keeps the disinfectant and the differences between the inside and outside of the pipe. There can be issues with it, maintenance issues. a lot of people opt to go with a pint flush toilet or pint flush urinals instead of the waterless urinals to try to stay away from some of those maintenance issues.
Great. That's all. Okay. That's all the questions that we've gotten in the Q&A chat. But if anybody else wants to chat anything else in, they're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we can just kind of unmute everybody. And if we want to move into the networking component that way, that works.
There was a question on bioswales.
Oh, there is one. Can we please explain the bioswale process?
Yeah, so there's a few different types of swale or retention. So one of them is a bioretention, which is a vertical flow-through process where water would be allowed to pond in a planter kind of in a level way and flow vertically into the ground and infiltrate. But a technical bioswale is a longitudinal swale where you have gravity flow from one end to the other, and water would slowly enter one end of a bioswale. It would be allowed to have contact time with plants and slowly travel horizontally and make contact, uptake in plants, and slowly drop constituents or solids out and kind of slowly naturally treat it before it goes into the end of the line. Is there any more specifics that you want to know about?
Thank you. I was curious about, was the location of the building already determined? Because I imagine, with the slope of the land, how was that part of the planning?
Yeah, so actually on the CSC, it was really a challenge to make up grade between the athletic training facility and the CSC project. So we actually used landscaping to mitigate some grade change, and then kind of used the bioswale as a natural buffer to add stairs and sloped walkways to kind of mitigate grade change. So really, Quattro and Abe Landscape, we all did a nice job of just really understanding how we had to move people and incorporating landscape features strategically where we needed them. Ultimately, there was one bioswale in between the CSC project and the ATF project that was really paramount in mitigating a grade change, and it worked out nicely for treating the plaza as well.
Yeah, to add to what Danny indicated, was indicating is that the fact is that in the master plan for the for Los Angeles Valley College, there's a prescribed area for the building already. However, it's not dead set in stone, so we had a little bit of maneuverability to it. Plus the fact is that there's certain things by building code, there had to be a fire lane. So we knew that there needed to be at least 3 side access to that building. And so that's where Danny and Abe, our landscape architect, we just had to think about all of these other factors that comes with putting a building together, and then just decisively, try to maneuver all of these kit parts to make it work together. And I think, we got lucky, not lucky, we knew what we're doing, so it ended up being, successful in that regards.
Thank you, Gig. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you for your question.
This is Ben Stapleton. I have a question for the team here, and I kind of want to make this maybe like a rapid fire question from everyone's perspective, because I always think it's interesting when you have the whole team together. But maybe, starting with Kevin and kind of moving different folks in the project, what was the biggest challenge for you in this project and the lesson you learned from that?
Well, I would say, let me just talk about both projects. What's unique about LECCD is that each campus has its own architectural style. And for us, it's very important to kind of, to embrace what's happening on that campus and sort of amplify what's great about that particular style. So what we want to demonstrate, no matter what style we're working in, is that there are ways to incorporate sustainability, that if you just focus on sort of the passive strategies rather than on stylistic motifs, you can really achieve a lot more in the end if you have sort of a more of a systems approach and not have it be too style driven from the front end. That's really my take on it, is that to be systems driven rather than stylistic driven.
It's a great answer and really impacts a project philosophically speaking. From the PanCal perspective, what would you say was maybe one of the biggest challenges on one of these projects and biggest lessons learned?
Okay, I'll go for, I worked on the admin building, and there was an existing administration building there previously that housed one of their data centers. And prior to us being able to demolish that building, we had to actually build an entire data center, their Omega data center, and cut it over before we could start this project. So I would just say the phasing of the project was a challenge. Not a challenge, it was exciting to build a data center. It was, it went really well, but that was part of what we had to figure out with site logistics and making sure we weren't disrupting the campus and make sure the cutover went over successfully.
Yeah, for the Community Services Center project, Don had mentioned that we were tied into the existing central plant, but we also had to build a mini central plant, the utility enclosure, and that was kind of a later change, and so we had to, things changed, the design changed partway through, so that I think to me that was one of the bigger challenges, was to incorporate that and still, you know, maintain our schedule and be successful in opening this project.
KPFF or Southland Industries, anything you'd want to touch on?
I think for site utilities, there's a tremendous amount of mechanical utilities on the CSC project, and just we have a pretty intense corridor of utilities under that beautiful hardscape and landscape that you can only see in the 3D model now. But we spent a lot of time doing 3D BIM coordinating with structural foundations, zones of influence in tight utility corridors, and really Panco did a great job leading the BIM process and clash detection, but that was a big challenge. We had to have a cast all engaged. It wasn't one person figuring it out. And so it really made the need for a great team to show up apparent, but we were able to accomplish that. And so, but you know, nobody can see it now, but there's a sea of coordinated utilities under there.
Verdical Group, Rebecca, anything that you would comment from your perspective too, just certifying these projects?
Sure, yeah, I think from Verdical Group's perspective, it's just trying to find the synergies. You never want to sacrifice one credit or one person's idea for another to move that idea forward. So I think just trying to keep a balance. And I mean, we had a great team, so there were a ton of great ideas during the charrette. And, you know, sometimes during design and bidding out the process and design builds, there's always things that get value engineered out. But fortunately on this project, there weren't too many of those. So overall, yeah, great project and learning lesson. Just, I think Panco mentioned this, just keeping up on a consistent basis, you know, just keeping those monthly meetings on the calendar. And, but overall, yeah, great team, great project.
Dr. Gribbins or Dr. Smith, anything from the sort of owner-operator perspective?
The construction of the projects actually predated me, so they went off without a hitch since I wasn't here. But I'll say both projects are wonderful now that we've all moved in or are using them. There aren't any problems with the design or function of the buildings that I've run into. They're just wonderful buildings to live in.
That's great to hear. And then, you know, I have a question, if I may continue, because let me see if there's any other questions here in the chat. We do have a question from someone about I'll hold my question for a second so we can answer hers. So we have a question from George that says he teaches environmental science at Valley. Occasionally they have students who want to study architecture, and he's wondering what opportunities faculty might have to access some of the graphics and design descriptions for buildings on the campus.
And if I may, I know we have our college project director, Mark Strauss, who is familiar with the campus as well as the projects. And I'd like for him to just provide just his experience on these two projects, as well as responding to Professor Lee.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Gribbins. Yeah, it was a real honor to be involved with these projects. You know, I started with the program in 2014, and that was right around the time that the CSC was getting going. It was roughly a year ahead of the academic building, and the teams that were outstanding on both of them. You got to meet some of those folks today, and my compliments to them. I think the question was what access do you have to some of the? Could you repeat the question exactly, please, so I just make sure I answer it on point?
Yeah, so the question was, I wonder what opportunities faculty have to access some of the graphics and design descriptions for buildings on our campus.
Sure. Okay, so we do have a series of master plans, and those are what our guidance are. So most of those standards are kept either up online on the Build LACCD website. We have, not only district standards there, but we have campus standards, and then drilling down even further, we of course have very specific master plans to the campus. For this particular campus, we do have a signage and graphics master plan. We have colors and aesthetic master plan. We have a landscape master plan, urban forest master plan. So really, as it relates to planning per se, much time has been spent up front. So there is a common theme for the entire bond program, and that's inclusive of everything we've been doing going all the way back to the early 2000s through A, AA, Measure J, and now into CC, and even going forward beyond. So all of that is available. It's either in my trailer here on campus, or it's also available at M&O. They have a plan room, and those sorts of things can be gotten. And of course, as I mentioned already, at the Build LACCD website, there's a good amount of information actually by campus. And this is where a lot of our consultants go when they're working on our projects, as a common repository to gather such information.
And if I could just add, as it relates to the two projects presented today, I'd be happy to share any of the materials that you saw today, and there are probably others. And this is actually, and I'm sure Panko would agree that education is a huge part of what we do, and we get excited about what we do, and we'd be happy to. I'll speak for myself. I'd be happy to give presentations to any of your students, walk through some of the buildings, and point out some of the issues that are sort of curriculum focused. I think sort of the next level of thinking when it comes to architecture for our educational clients is that the building itself becomes a learning tool. And we keep that in mind. So, that's one of the reasons why, and, Rebecca touched on it, we expose some of the elements. So people wonder, what is that? Why is it shaped that way? What is the function of that thing I'm looking at? Reach out to me. I'm sure we can get my information through Mark or a lot of other folks here today. I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Thank you. Great answer. Great answer from all of you. That was really, really thorough. If I may ask one more question, and then we can wait to see if anyone else has any others before we close out. I'm just curious about the commitment the LACCD has recently made to go zero carbon. That's a real challenge for any school to do, and I really appreciate you stepping up to provide leadership for our region. Dr. Smith, this might be a question for you. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you talk maybe a little bit about that process and what the biggest challenge might have been there? And this is something I think a lot of schools will be looking at here in the coming years.
Well, we hope to lead by example, number one, and I appreciate the question, Ben. We do want to lead by example as a community college. We do want to set the standard, and we want the other 71 districts to follow. The biggest challenge was, our resolution is 4 pages long, lots of whereases and be it resolved, and that's not typical. But based on the level of commitment that we have in changing behavior, in how we commit our, to curriculum. And I'm really glad that we have George Leddy on, in reviewing this. Is we want to make sure that this is a process and a program that works for the community, and we also want to develop jobs. And so, coming full circle, I can't take the credit. We actually have Ariso Vasapian, who is our sustainability utility manager, who's also on the call. He can chime in and provide some input, but this is something that he's been trying to do for a long time. And so we've been working on, started working on a resolution, I want to say back in November, and it took us a few passes to get it through administration and then to get to FEMPOC and to the board. But there was no apprehension there for support, but the goal was for us to ensure that we were reaching out to all the stakeholders. So one of the things that we will also have with these efforts is we're committing each college to develop a sustainability vision 2040. So basically a sustainability master plan at each college. And that is built from, and developed from the constituents at each college and rolled up. And we've also dedicated $75 million towards these efforts, although that does not limit the amount of work that we're going to do from our bond program, but that's more or less for some of the smaller projects that are difficult to start or complete that will have an impact on carbon neutrality.
That's awesome, and I think it's really interesting too to look at the sort of reaffirming cycle. As you do these projects, you're also seeding the economy and helping to create jobs for these students. We do some work here at USGBCLA with LATTC and some of the other schools and some of the architectural students, and trying to provide them with entry-level jobs into these industries. And I do think there's a clear path there. So I think it's important that you recognize that. And it sounds like you do, which is great.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from anyone else here on the webinar today? All right, one more question that came here.
One more question here. What's the typical upfront premium for a building at the different LEED levels, and how long does it typically take to recoup that from lower operating costs? I can speak a bit to that. It definitely depends on the size of the building and which level of LEED certification you are pursuing. The basic level of LEED certification, just basic certified, as well as silver, is pretty common here in California. It's pretty achievable just because of the high standards that California has already implemented. We have very high energy requirements to keep the energy down. Also, California requires low flow water fixtures and also low emitting materials. So the cost for LEED certified and silver, the design and implementation, it would only basically be the LEED certification process. So getting the LEED certification registration and the fees for review and submittal, and also hiring a LEED consultant like Verdical Group to help coordinate all of the documentation and make sure that all of the synergies and design and as well as construction strategies are being implemented. For gold and platinum, it really just depends which credits you want to pursue. I don't want to put an exact number on that, but it can range from $10,000 up to $100,000. I'd say, just really dependent on which credits and sustainability attributes you'd like to pursue.
Rebecca, can I just add?
If you have a certain project, yeah, just one more note here. If you have a certain project that you'd like more information on, myself and my BD team would be happy to talk in more detail. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say is that you can spend a lot of money fixing bad design decisions. that's why it's important to emphasize, passive design strategies up front, so orientation, where you locate glazing, and making smart choices of materials. Don was just talking about how he was able to downsize mechanical systems because we're using less energy on these projects. That's money you save right away. And then the money you save for the cost of operation is sort of, on top of that. I know that on LECCD projects we've had where LEED silver was the minimum, we've gotten LEED gold without adding a dime to the budget. So I think a huge part of it is making smart decisions, and that'll get you pretty much within striking distance without spending an additional dime.
Yeah, I think if you know from the beginning and you plan for it, it does not add money. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, the admin building, the goal was silver. And we realized pretty quickly into the design process that we were going to achieve gold. And I don't have a line item in my budget that says LEED gold. It just, it worked out that way with the smart design decisions that were made.
And that's where the teamwork comes in. You have to work together so that you're not working cross purposes. You really need to have everyone marching in the same direction and in unison to sort of squeeze a lot out of the design decisions you make.
We had another question that came in. Do you want me to read it out, Rebecca, or do you want to read it out?
Sure. Yeah, go for it, Ben.
So we have a question from Kevin Donahue. Can you speak to any sustainable design strategies specifically centered around human health and wellness? I'm guessing that's a question for the project team. I imagine there's a variety of people who could probably answer that.
Actually, I'll start with it. The thing is that with human health and wellness, the CSE was a community services center. So with the natural light that's used in that space and everything, that helps with the psychology of being in that space. Also, we're using natural ventilation, so you don't have, recycled air in that space. And Don, do you want to add to it? How we thought about that whole space, especially like that gymnastics center and that rock climbing wall.
Yeah, I think it's key to have good air quality for the occupants in the building, and the natural ventilation absolutely achieves that. We're also utilizing the airflow monitoring station in the air handling unit to make sure we do have accurate airflow in the building when natural ventilation isn't available for us. So we provide good, clean air for the occupants.
And then in terms
sorry. Go ahead, Kev. Okay. I just wanted to add, even depending on like certain types of materials that you install, the low VOC content certainly helps with the health, like less stinky paint. You don't have the VOCs in there with any adhesive. So just being mindful of that and trying to stick with the lower thresholds, even lower than what LEED is requiring, certainly helps towards that as well.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And on the exterior perspective, there's a lot of open space. There's walking track. There's a lot of seating areas. There's a lot of ways to get out of the building and experience kind of the natural environment. And just from a health and wellness standpoint, walk around. Literally, the Alumni Walk is a large pedestrian way that carries you across the campus. So there's ways to move and mobilize and promote outdoor living.
Yeah, and part of
Like
that
Danny was
there was a walking track as well, so that's a piece of that.
Yeah, so
with the hard course equipment.
Yes.
Adding to what Lindsay and Stacey and Danny was saying is also the heat island effect. We purposely use certain materials for the landscape area. Plus, we have large landscape spaces versus in addition to the hardscape spaces, to reduce that heat island effect. So while you're standing there, you don't feel like you're baking with that hot sun here at the valley.
And then in the admin building, we made a concerted effort to make sure that every single office got natural light. If they were an office on the second level and they weren't on the perimeter, they had a skylight of natural lighting, or if they were near the perimeter across the hall, there was a glass storefront into those spaces. And there were also outdoor seating areas there as well. We put some concrete benches in so that people could sit outside. Anything else for that, Kevin, do you think, for the admin building?
No, I think between the two projects, there were some common themes. Yeah, to the extent that you can connect people to natural forces, whether it be natural light, breathing, natural ventilation, and have a connection to the outside. It promotes health and wellness.
I would just add that there's some great data now around productivity and health. For a long time, we didn't have good data around the impacts of some of these strategies that were mentioned, but now we have some really good data that points to that. And it's especially important, I think, in an educational setting. We see a lot of schools, especially in our local public school districts, where they're in classrooms that were designed for far fewer students. The ventilation's not set to properly support the number of students they have today, and those things have real world impacts on their ability to learn, especially over the course of a day. And so these are really important issues as we look to address buildings going forward from a design perspective, but also an operating perspective around ventilation, access to nature, all those sorts of things. All right, well, it doesn't look like I see
any other questions? Give it another minute here. But in the meantime, Ben, if you want to, again, announce the upcoming events, while we wait a few minutes here to see if there's any other questions.
Sure,
if you think of any questions after the call, feel free to reach out to myself, Rebecca Ramsdale here at Verdical Group, and I will get you in touch with the correct person.
Thank you, Rebecca, and sincere thanks to everyone from the LA Community College District team and the project team here for taking the time. I'll try to go quickly through these since we saw them earlier, but I just want to encourage everyone again to come out to our Municipal Green Building Conference and Expo in August. I'll put a link to the agenda here in the chat. And then, again, to support content like this, please text GREEN to 707070 to support future tours, future webinars. Most of the content we provide is for free, and we're really focused on education. As an organization, we're an independent nonprofit from USGBC National, and our mission is really accelerating sustainability in the built environment here in the LA region. Next slide, please. And do want to say thank you to our sponsors and partners. We couldn't do the work we do without their support. Again, we're all living through difficult times right now, to say the least. And I've been encouraged by the ingenuity and the ability for people to be creative and flexible. And just as we've seen today, the opportunity to learn in a new way. We would normally do tours like this in person, but it's tough for people to drive and get to those sites. And not everyone can do that during their workday. And so our hope is that we can really make this kind of information more accessible for everyone as we move forward in the environment we're in right now. So with that, I'm done with my spiel for the evening. I've been on video calls since 7 a.m. this morning, so it might be time to wind this down. But everyone did a great job today, and thank you for the tour.
Yes, what a way to make lemonade out of lemons then with this this current state of
We
staying
can
at
make
home.
lemons
So I
too.
think we had,
Lemons are also useful. I like lemons. Yeah.
so yeah, I think we had more people join the tour today than we would have, you know, if everyone were to drive to the site. So thank you everyone for joining us. I think that about closed it out.
It was an honor.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Good
Thanks
night.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.